February 23, 1945. A splintered pine forest east of Düren, Germany. The world has been reduced to the color of mud and the sound of thunder. For Lena Voss, a 21-year-old signals auxiliary with the Luftwaffe, the thunder is not from the sky. It comes from the earth, a deep, percussive shudder that travels through the frozen soil, up the legs of her field table, and into the bones of her hands. For 3 days, the American artillery has been walking its way across the landscape, chewing up the remnants of the Siegfried Line, turning ancient forests into fields of jagged stumps. Each explosion is a punctuation mark in a sentence she can no longer read. Thump, whump. A geyser of black earth and snow erupts 100 meters away. The canvas roof of the signals tent ripples, shedding a cascade of pine needles and dirt. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of ozone, damp wool, and the metallic tang of fear. Her headset is a dead weight on her ears. The lines to the command post at Kesternik went silent 2 hours ago. The lines to the flak batteries near Schmidt an hour after that. Now, all she hears is static, a hiss like a serpent mocking her isolation. She is not a soldier, not really. Her uniform is the gray-blue of the Air Force, but her weapon was a Siemens switchboard, a web of plugs and wires that connected the dwindling German defenses. She was a Nachrichtenhelferin, a weaver of voices. Now the web is torn, and the voices are gone. A new sound slices through the barrage, a high mechanical scream, followed by a rattling, clattering roar that is not artillery. It's closer, much closer. Her commanding officer, a weary, hollow-eyed Hauptmann whose name she barely remembers, bursts through the tent flap. His face is pale, smeared with soot. Out. Everyone out. They've broken through the wire. Sherman's on the ridge. The words detonate in the small space with more force than a shell. The other 2 girls, Greta and Anya, scramble for their greatcoats, their eyes wide and white. Panic is a contagion. Lena feels its cold grip tighten around her chest. She fumbles with a headset, pulling it off, her ears ringing in the sudden relative silence. The rattling is louder now, a monstrous grinding noise that speaks of immense weight and unstoppable power. Mixed with it is a new sound, a sharp, rhythmic popping. Pop, 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 pop. Machine guns. American Browning M1919s, chewing through the trees. Outside, the world is a fever dream. Men in Feldgrau are running, not in a coordinated retreat, but in a frantic, every-man-for-himself scramble. They dart between the shattered pines, their Mauser rifles held tight. A machine gun nest, an MG-42 that had been chattering defiantly moments before, is silent. Its crew lies in a tangled heap, their helmets askew. The air is filled with shouts, the whistle of ricochets, and the guttural cough of a dying man. The Hauptmann is shouting orders that no one is following. He points Lena and the others toward a shallow communications trench. Get down, stay down. They slide into the frozen ditch, the icy mud soaking through their trousers instantly. Lena presses herself against the frozen earth, her face buried in the crook of her arm. She can feel the vibration of the tank treads in her teeth, in her skull. It grows from a rumble to a deafening roar. The ground itself seems to be screaming. She peeks over the edge of the trench. There it is. An olive drab monster, an M4 Sherman, nosing through the trees not 50 meters away. Its long 76mm cannon swivels, an impersonal eye searching for targets. Behind it, figures in unfamiliar uniforms move with a fluid, predatory grace. They are tall, clad in canvas leggings and field jackets that seem too big for them. Their helmets are different, a simple, curved bowl. The Americans, the Amis, the creatures from the propaganda posters, made real. They are shouting to each other in a language that sounds like rocks grinding together. Harsh, alien. A torrent of fire erupts from the tank's coaxial machine gun, ripping through the tree line where the last of the German soldiers were fleeing. Lena clenches, pulling her head down, a choked sob catching in her throat. This is it. The end of the world. Not in a grand, fiery apocalypse, but in a muddy forest, hunted by machines and men who do not speak her language. The firing stops. An eerie silence falls, broken only by the grumbling idle of the tank's engine and the drip of melting snow from a branch above her. She holds her breath, praying to be invisible. Footsteps, heavy, crunching through the debris. They stop right beside the trench. Lena's entire body goes rigid. She can smell wet canvas and stale cigarette smoke. A voice, sharp and commanding. Okay, check the ditch. Get him out. A shadow falls over her. Lena squeezes her eyes shut, waiting for the bullet, the bayonet. Instead, a rifle butt prods her shoulder, hard. Raus, Hände hoch. On your feet, now. The German is heavily accented, but the meaning is clear. Slowly, trembling, Lena pushes herself up. Her hands rise automatically, shaking so badly she has to clench them into fists. Before her stands a giant, a broad-shouldered American soldier, his face grim under his helmet, a Thompson submachine gun held loosely in his hands. His eyes, tired and cold, sweep over her, over Greta and Anya, who are also rising.
their faces streaked with tears and dirt. He seems disappointed. He says something to another soldier standing behind him. Lena catches a single word: women. The other soldier spits a brown stream of tobacco juice onto the snow. There is no negotiation, no questions, just a jerk of the head, a gesture with a rifle barrel. She is shoved out of the trench and into a growing huddle of captured Germans. Wehrmacht soldiers, Volkssturm old men, and now 3 Luftwaffe auxiliaries. Her identity is gone. Her name is gone. She is no longer Lena Voss. She is a prisoner of war, a piece of human wreckage to be swept up in the wake of the battle. And as she looks at the hard, indifferent faces of her captors, a cold, absolute terror unlike anything she has ever known begins to settle deep within her soul.
The column forms without explicit orders, a natural confluence of misery. Prisoners are herded from ditches, shattered bunkers, and spider holes, their hands clasped behind their heads. They are a collection of the defeated, teenage boys from the Hitler Youth with fear still etched on their smooth faces, grizzled veterans of the Eastern Front whose stoicism has finally cracked, and the 3 women from the signals tent, their gray-blue uniforms a stark anomaly in the sea of Feldgrau. The Americans work with a tired, brutal efficiency. They strip the prisoners of weapons, knives, and sometimes watches or rings, the small trinkets of a former life tossed into a helmet. A guard with a square jaw and a chevron on his sleeve runs a hand over Lena's coat. He pauses, his rough fingers brushing the thin fabric. She freezes, her breath catching in her throat, expecting a different kind of violation. But his eyes are empty, bored. He's just checking for a concealed pistol. He moves on, leaving her feeling hollowed out, less than human. Then the march begins. There is no road, only a track carved through the mud by the endless procession of armor and trucks. It is a thick, primordial soup of clay, snowmelt, and churned earth, ankle-deep in some places, knee-deep in others. Each step is a struggle. The mud creates a vicious suction, clinging to her boots, trying to pull them off her feet with every labored pace. The sound is a constant, rhythmic sucking and squelching, the collective sigh of 100 exhausted souls fighting the very ground they walk on. The sky is a sheet of lead, weeping a cold, persistent drizzle that finds its way past the collar of her greatcoat, tracing icy paths down her spine. The world is rendered in monochrome: the gray sky, the black skeletons of trees, the brown mud, the drab olive of the American vehicles that occasionally rumble past, splashing the prisoners with arcs of filthy water. The guards don't seem to notice. They just wave them on, their faces set in grim lines of duty. Lena's world shrinks to the space directly in front of her, the back of the prisoner ahead, a weary Wehrmacht corporal whose shoulders slump a little more with each kilometer. She focuses on his boots, watching them lift and plunge, setting a rhythm for her own. Her own boots, sturdy leather issue, were her pride a week ago. Now they are waterlogged coffins for her feet. A blister she'd felt forming on her left heel has burst, and every step is a sharp, grinding pain. An hour passes. 2. Time loses all meaning, measured only in aching muscles and the growing, gnawing emptiness in her stomach. The initial shock of capture has worn off, replaced by a profound, soul-crushing exhaustion. The terror is still there, a low hum beneath the surface, but it is too tired to scream. She is simply a body, moving forward because the body in front of her is moving forward, and a man with a rifle is walking alongside her. You become an animal. Your thoughts simplify. One more step, then another. You stop thinking about home, about your family and bombed-out Cologne. You stop thinking about the future because you cannot imagine one. Your entire existence is this muddy track, this gray sky, this unending, shuffling march. The war is no longer about nations or ideologies. It is about the searing pain in your heel and the cold water seeping into your bones. They pass through a ruined village. It is little more than a collection of hollowed-out stone shells, their roofs gone, their walls pockmarked by shrapnel. A dead cow lies bloated in a ditch, its legs pointing stiffly at the sky. The smell of rot and damp plaster hangs in the air. On a wall, someone has scrawled in white paint, Jeder soll sein Russ, jeder soll sein Franzos, jeder tritt ein Brit. Every shot a Russian, every thrust a Frenchman, every kick a Briton. The old, boastful propaganda seems like a message from a different century. Below it, an American soldier has used charcoal to add his own reply. Sorry, we're fresh out of Brits. Will Yanks do? The gallows humor offers no comfort. It only highlights the totality of her world's collapse. Everything she was told, everything she believed, has turned to ash and mud. Greta, one of the other signals auxiliaries, stumbles and falls to her knees, her face ashen. A guard, a young private who can't be much older than Lena, prods her with his M1 Garand. Get up, keep moving. His voice isn't cruel, just flat and tired. Greta sobs, a dry, racking sound. I can't. The corporal in front of Lena stops, turns, and without a word, hauls Greta to her feet. He half drags, half carries her for the next few hundred meters, until she finds her footing again. No one speaks. It is a small, silent act of solidarity in a universe of indifference. Lena feels her own strength failing. The pain in her foot is a constant, sharp cry for attention. Her legs are trembling, not just from cold, but from sheer fatigue.
She stumbles, catching herself before she falls. She bites her lip, forcing herself to keep moving. To fall is to be left behind. To fall is to die. She doesn't know if that's true, but the fear of it is a powerful motivator. The column crests a small rise. The track ahead stretches on, disappearing in the misty drizzle. It looks endless. A river of the lost, flowing towards an unknown, terrifying sea. A wave of dizziness washes over Lena. The landscape swims. Her vision narrows to a tunnel. The back of the corporal in front of her blurs. Her knee buckles. This time, she cannot stop it. She pitches forward, her hands too slow to break her fall. She lands hard, her cheek smacking against the cold, wet mud. It is strangely soft, almost welcoming. The column shuffles past her. I hear a guard's voice, sharp with irritation. Hey, get up. On your feet, Fräulein. Lena pushes with her arms, but they feel like lead. There is no strength left. Mud fills her mouth. Despair, thick and suffocating, washes over her. This is it. This is where her journey ends. In the mud, like that dead cow in the village. She closes her eyes, a single tear cutting a clean path through the grime on her cheek. I hear the guard's heavy footsteps approaching. I brace myself for a kick, for the butt of his rifle. But the expected blow doesn't come. Instead, the guard's cursing stops abruptly. There is a new sound, a slow, rhythmic clopping. A sound that doesn't belong here, in this world of engines and explosions. It's the sound of a horse. Lena manages to lift her head, her eyes struggling to focus through the haze of exhaustion. Coming towards them, parting the river of prisoners like a ship, is a lone American soldier on horseback.
The horse is a large, sturdy-looking Ardennes draft horse, its brown coat matted with mud and sweat. It seems an anachronism, a creature from another time dropped into the mechanized hell of the Western Front. But in the churned-up landscape, where jeeps and even half-tracks struggled, the animal's four-legged traction is a clear advantage. Astride it sits a man who looks as out of place as his mount. He isn't a cavalryman in the traditional sense. There are no sabers or polished boots. He wears the same drab uniform as the other GIs, the same M1 helmet. But he sits the horse with an easy, natural grace that speaks of a lifetime in the saddle. He isn't perched on it, he is part of it. He holds the reins loosely in one gloved hand, his gaze sweeping over the column of prisoners with a calm, assessing air. From her position in the mud, Lena sees him first as a silhouette against the oppressive gray sky, a figure of immense power and authority. He is the conqueror, magnified. Propaganda posters from the Walkinshaw newsreels flash through her mind. Images of brutal, cigar-chomping Americans, the gangsters and cowboys who had come to destroy her homeland. This man, on this horse, looks like he has ridden straight out of one of those posters. The guard who was yelling at her has fallen silent, looking up at the mounted sergeant. The prisoners shuffle to a halt, a ripple of confusion passing through the column. All eyes are on the rider. He pulls the horse to a gentle stop just a few feet from where Lena lies. The animal snorts, its breath fogging in the cold air. The scent of warm horse and wet leather cuts through the stench of mud and exhaust fumes. It's a clean, earthy smell that feels ancient and deeply unsettling in its familiarity. Lena's heart hammers against her ribs. She is at his mercy, a broken thing at the feet of this imposing figure. He is going to make an example of her. She is sure of it. This is where the humiliation begins. The sergeant leans forward slightly in the saddle, his eyes narrowed against the drizzle, finding her. You are looking up at him from the mud, and you can see the lines of fatigue etched around his eyes, the dark stubble on his jaw. He's not old, perhaps mid-20s, but he has the weary face of a man who has seen too much. His gaze is not cruel, not angry. It's something far more unnerving, patient. He's simply looking at her, taking in the scene, the small, mud-caked woman, the exasperated guard. He shifts his tobacco from one cheek to the other, a slow, deliberate movement. Then he speaks, and his voice is not the harsh bark of the other soldiers. It's a low, unhurried drawl, a sound so foreign it might as well be from another planet. What's the trouble here, Corporal? The guard gestures with his rifle. She fell, Sarge. Won't get up. We gotta keep the column moving. The sergeant's eyes remain on Lena. He doesn't seem to be looking at her uniform or her face, but at her feet. At the worn-out boots, one of which is caked in a mixture of mud and what is probably blood from her broken blister. He sees the tremor in her shoulders, the utter defeat in her posture. Lena braces herself. He will order the guard to kick her. He will laugh. He will ride on, leaving her to her fate. It is what she has been taught to expect. The enemy is merciless. War is merciless. He straightens up in the saddle. He says nothing for a long moment. The only sounds are the dripping rain, the creak of leather, and the ragged sound of Lena's own breathing. Then he makes a decision.
With a smooth, economical motion, he swings his right leg over the horse's back and dismounts. He lands softly in the mud, the sound barely audible. He stands to his full height, and he is taller than she had imagined. He hands the reins to the bewildered guard. Hold him. Then he turns and starts walking towards her. Each step is a lifetime. Lena's mind screams. She flattens herself further into the mud, a primal instinct to make herself smaller, to disappear. This is it. This is the moment of violence. He's going to drag her, beat her, punish her for delaying the march, for being a woman, for being German. The story she heard from nurses who had treated civilians from the East, stories of the Red Army. Do the Americans do the same things? He stops, his mud-caked boots inches from her face. She can see the fraying canvas of his leggings. She squeezes her eyes shut, her whole body tensed for the impact. She can feel his presence looming over her, a mountain of a man blocking out the gray light. A strange, quiet calm of utter resignation settles over her. Let it happen. Let it be over. She waits, and waits, but nothing happens. There is no kick, no shout, no rough hand grabbing her hair. There is only the steady, quiet breathing of the man standing over her, and the gentle patter of rain on her helmet. Slowly, hesitantly, she dares to open her eyes. He is just standing there, looking down at her, his expression unreadable. And then he crouches down, bringing his face closer to her level.
He moves with a slow, deliberate stillness that is somehow more terrifying than aggression. It's the calm of a predator, she thinks, or a farmer with a stubborn animal. His knees sink into the mud beside her. He says nothing. The silence stretches, thick with tension. The entire column of prisoners and guards seems to be holding its breath, watching this strange tableau unfold. Lena's fear is a physical thing, a cold, metallic taste in her mouth. She expects him to grab her, to snarl a command in her face. Instead, he simply reaches out. His hand is large, covered by a worn leather glove stained dark with rain and dirt. She flinches violently, a small, involuntary jerk, convinced the blow is finally coming. But his hand does not strike. It moves past her face, impossibly gentle, and rests for a moment on her shoulder. The pressure is firm, steady. It is not a gesture of violence, nor is it one of comfort. It is purely functional, a test. He is feeling the tremor running through her body, gauging the absolute exhaustion that has taken root in her bones. His eyes, a pale, clear blue she can now see under the brim of his helmet, meet hers. They are startlingly direct. Then he speaks, his voice still a low drawl, but softer now, meant only for her. "All right now," he says, the English words almost incomprehensible to her ears, but the tone is unmistakable. It's the tone one uses to soothe a frightened horse. Before she can process this, he acts. His other hand slides under her arm. With a strength that feels effortless, he begins to lift. Lena's body is a dead weight, but it's no obstacle for him. She gives a small cry of alarm, her mind struggling to understand what is happening. This is not the brutal dragging she anticipated. He is lifting her cleanly from the mud, his movements efficient and certain. He gets her to her feet, but he doesn't let go. She is unsteady, her legs threatening to buckle again. She sways, and for a moment she is leaning against the solid wall of his chest. She can smell the damp wool of his uniform, the faint scent of coffee and tobacco. It is an intimate, terrifying proximity to the enemy. He holds her for a second, allowing her to find some semblance of balance. She thinks she will now push her back into the line, that this was just a rough, expedient way of getting the column moving, but he doesn't. He keeps one arm securely around her back and begins to walk her toward his horse. The guard holding the reins watches them, his mouth slightly agape. "Sarge." The sergeant ignores him. He stops beside the tall draft horse. The animal stands placidly, unfazed by the proceedings. Lena looks from the man to the horse, her mind a whirlwind of confusion. What is he doing? He repositions his grip, one hand firmly on her waist, the other under her knees. And then, with a single powerful movement, he lifts her completely off the ground. She is weightless for a second, a gasp escaping her lips. He is shockingly strong. He swings her upward and settles her onto the horse's broad flat back, just behind the saddle. The shock of it is electric. One moment she is a half-dead thing in the mud. The next she is sitting high above the ground, above the heads of her fellow prisoners, above the American guards. The physical change in perspective is so abrupt, so radical, it's dizzying. The warmth from the great animal's body begins to seep through her wet trousers and greatcoat, a deep, penetrating heat that feels like life itself.
She clutches at the back of the leather saddle to steady herself, her knuckles white. She stares down at the top of the sergeant's helmet. This cannot be real. It must be a hallucination brought on by hunger and fatigue. But it is real. The sergeant takes the reins back from the stunned corporal. He doesn't look at Lena. He doesn't say another word. He simply turns to the corporal and nods at the column. Get him moving. He places one hand on the back of the saddle near Lena's leg and begins to walk, leading the horse forward. The column lurches back into motion, the prisoners shuffling past. Their face is a mixture of astonishment, envy, and disbelief. They stare up at her, this German woman, literally elevated above their shared suffering, being led by an American cowboy. It makes no sense. It violates every rule of war as they have come to know it. The horse's gait is slow and steady, a gentle, rocking rhythm. With every step, the warmth of the animal spreads through her, loosening the icy grip of the cold. The searing pain in her foot subsides to a dull throb. She is no longer fighting the mud. She is floating above it. She dares to look at the man leading her. His name, she sees now, is stenciled on the back of his helmet. Miller. Sergeant Miller. He walks with a long, easy stride, his shoulders broad, his focus entirely on the path ahead. He has not done this for show. He has not said a word to her. It was a simple, silent act, as pragmatic as checking the oil in a Jeep. He saw a problem, a person who could no longer walk, and he provided a solution. The sheer, unexpected humanity of the gesture is what shatters her. It's a kindness so profound and so unasked for that it feels more violent than a blow. It attacks the very foundation of her fear and hatred. The enemy, the faceless, monstrous army, has a face, and it is the face of a man who just lifted her out of the mud and put her on his horse. Tears begin to well in her eyes, not tears of fear or despair, but of something she cannot name. They spill over, tracing clean paths through the filth on her cheeks, falling silently onto the muddy coat of the horse.
The march continues, but for Lena, the world has been remade. Her reality is no longer the sucking mud and the boots of the man in front of her. It is the gentle, rhythmic sway of the horse, the creak of worn leather, and the broad, steady back of Sergeant Miller. The war is still all around them, the distant, crumping echo of artillery, the rumble of a convoy of GMC trucks passing them in the opposite direction, their drivers gawking at the strange sight of the German woman on the sergeant's horse. But here, in this small, moving space, there is a bubble of impossible peace. She watches him, this strange American. He never looks back. He just walks, his M1 rifle slung over his shoulder, his hand resting lightly on the saddle horn now. He walks like he could do this all day, through all the mud in Germany. He has a Texan's patience, a long-distance patience born of wide-open spaces, now applied to the claustrophobic ruin of Europe. The other prisoners continue to steal glances at her. Their expressions are no longer just of shock. There is a hint of resentment in some eyes, a flicker of hope in others. Her elevation has made her a symbol, though of what, no one is quite sure. The guards, too, seem uncertain how to react. They leave a wider berth around the horse, as if the sergeant's quiet act of compassion has conferred upon him an authority that transcends his rank. After what feels like another hour, the landscape changes. The shattered forest gives way to the outskirts of another town, this one larger than the last. They are directed off the main track and into the courtyard of a heavily damaged stone church. The steeple is gone, and one wall has collapsed into a mountain of rubble, but the remaining structure offers some shelter from the relentless drizzle. This is a collection point. Dozens of other prisoners are already here, huddled in groups, their faces etched with the same numb exhaustion as Lena's column. American military police, identifiable by the white markings on their helmets, are organizing the chaos, their voices sharp and efficient. Sergeant Miller leads the horse to a halt near a relatively dry spot under the overhang of a surviving archway. The journey is over. The bubble of peace pops. Lena's anxiety returns with a sudden, sharp pang. Now what? He stops and finally turns to look up at her. His face is impassive, beaded with rain. For a moment, they just look at each other. She, the defeated enemy, perched on his horse. He, the victor, holding the reins. The vast gulf of language, nationality, and war lies between them, but in this moment it feels strangely narrow. He reaches up, his movements still unhurried. "Easy now," he says, the words a soft rumble. He places his hands on her waist. She understands. She swings her leg over, her stiff, cold muscles protesting. He takes her weight easily, helping her slide down to the ground. Her feet touch the cobblestones and her legs nearly give way. The pain in her heel flares back to life. She stumbles and he steadies her, his hand lingering on her arm for a second longer than necessary to ensure she has her balance. "You okay?" he asks.
She doesn't understand the words, but she understands the question in his eyes. She can only nod, a small, jerky movement. She searches for the German words. Danke, she whispers, the word feeling hopelessly inadequate. Thank you. He seems to understand. A flicker of something, not quite a smile, but a softening, crosses his features. He gives a short single nod in return. He then turns his attention to his field jacket. He unbuttons a pocket and pulls something out. Lena instinctively tenses again, the deeply ingrained fear flaring. But it isn't a weapon. It's a small, rectangular object wrapped in brown paper. A Hershey's chocolate bar. It's slightly crushed, but it's real. He holds it out to her. She stares at it, then at him, her eyes wide. Food was a distant memory. Chocolate was something from a past life. To be offered such a thing, a luxury even for the victors, by an enemy soldier, it is a gesture that transcends comprehension. Hesitantly, as if expecting it to be a trick, she reaches out and takes it. Her cold, trembling fingers brush against his gloved limbs. The paper wrapper feels real, solid. Tex, let's move it. The shout comes from another soldier, a lieutenant standing by a jeep. Recon patrol in 10. The sergeant, Tex, glances toward the voice. His duty is calling him back into the war. He turns back to Lena one last time. There is nothing more to say. There are no words that can cross the chasm between them. He simply touches the brim of his helmet in a gesture that is not quite a salute, but a sign of acknowledgement, a farewell. Then he swings himself effortlessly into the saddle, gathers the reins, and clicks his tongue. The big horse turns and plods away, its hooves loud on the wet stone of the courtyard. Lena stands there, clutching the chocolate bar, and watches as the American cowboy disappears back into the gray nest and the machinery of war. She is still a prisoner. Her country is in ruins. Her future is a terrifying blank page. Nothing about her dire circumstances has changed. And yet, everything has. In the heart of the war's relentless cruelty, she has been met with an act of inexplicable kindness. A single, quiet gesture has proven that the line between enemy and human is not as sharp as she had been taught. Humanity, she now knows, can survive in the most unlikely of places. In the calloused hand of a Texan sergeant, in the gentle warmth of a horse, in a small, crushed bar of chocolate. And for Lena Voss, standing amidst the ruins, that tiny glimmer is enough to face whatever comes next.